3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Non-issue, handled internally. I'm not talking about it. Now, what don't we understand about that? Do you understand what internally means? It's been handled internally. We're not talking about it. It's over with. Move on. Next question. Got nothing to say? Enjoy your day, fellas. We'll see you at Ivor Wynn Stadium.
Welcome to the Blue Bombers Handled Internally podcast. I'm Tait from BlueBombers.com, joined as always by the Blue Bombers Chief Consigliere, the Senior Director of Player and Public Relations, Darren Cameron. And also, I should point out, the Blue Bombers Handled Internally podcast is now brought to you by PlayNow.com. Bomber fans, PlayNow.com reminds you that when you bet on Blue, there's only one legal online sportsbook in Manitoba. Only one that guarantees your winnings. Only one where the profits stay here to support your community. Play your Bombers at PlayNow.com, your hometown sportsbook. Enjoy responsibly. Okay, before we get to today's guest, the legendary Sergio Castillo. Darren, let's talk a little bit about the week ahead and the week that was left behind here with the win over Calgary, and we've got a trip to Ottawa this week.
Yeah, great crowd last week, I thought.
Awesome.
Whiteout game coming up, our next home game on the 22nd. So, great summer night at the stadium.
30,000 plus.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I thought, and we got to 4-1, which is important. So, now it's going to be a dogfight all season, it looks like, and here we are. So, 4-1 going to Ottawa. Pretty shitty circumstances out there for them. I think, we speak for everybody around the league, and that's all. There's really no words for it. I think a terrible, absolute terrible thing. Cruel is one of the things I found myself saying over the weekend. A cruel way for their Jeremiah season end. I mean, after what went on last year and the year with the road back, it's plot sickening.
Yeah, a guy works his whole year to get back, more than a year before he gets back on the field, and then to have an Achilles injury like that shut him down for another year. It's not something like a pulled hamstring or a groin that's going to keep him out a few weeks. It was devastating.
It was almost unbelievable to be watching. Like, as it was happening, it was almost like you just couldn't believe that this was happening.
Yeah.
And the family there and all this. It just a complete.
Well, and there's side things too. We're both, you more than me, but we're both tight with Bob Dice, the Ottawa head coach. I have a lot of respect for him. And now, they're on to a rookie quarterback starting this week in Dustin Crum. It changes, it's terrible for Jeremiah, but it certainly changes the outlook in Ottawa. They'll soldier on and still be tough, and they're in position to still make the playoffs in the East, but it should change their landscape there for the Redlegs too.
Yeah, I mean, shortly after it happened, I sent the text over to Sean Burke, their GM, and I talked to Bobby after the game briefly. Both, not surprisingly, both of them said they feel most bad for the player, and rightfully so, obviously. There is a business element to this, unfortunately, for Sean especially. That as this is unfolding, not only can you feel a horrible pit in your stomach for what has happened, but you have to move forward at the same time and try and figure out what you're going to do next. And both those guys are great guys and been doing great work in the league for a long time. I'm pretty confident that they'll get those guys fired up and motivated to keep on the rolling. But yeah, it's an absolutely shitty, horrible situation for everybody. Most notably, of course, Jeremiah. So
they signed 2 quarterbacks today.
Yeah,
good
for Mickey.
Including Terrell.
Yeah, and that's great to see. He's a good kid. I mean, it's not exactly the easiest quarterback stable here to stick around in, and he did some good things in the preseason. So looking forward to seeing him. Looking forward to getting into Ottawa, and maybe have a steak and see what else is going on. So we'll move over to Sergio. He's been sitting patiently. We've been trying to get him for basically since he signed here, re-signed for the third time now, or acquired for the third time. He brushed us off multiple times, but here he is finally.
What a way to welcome.
No, that completely made up. They never happened, but no, we're pumped to have you, buddy. And I know we've talked a lot over the years, known each other a long time, and you know how pumped I was to get that sorted out in May or whatever that was, April, late April, early May, whatever. That whole thing came down. And we talked a lot within that 4-hour period, and glad it worked out, man. Great to see you back in the building.
First of all, thanks for having me here. It's definitely great to be back. I feel like I'm home.
Yeah.
Right. And when at first when the whole situation happened with Edmonton, I was obviously bummed. Right. You want to have a job, right? And then just how things unfolded within 24 hours, my whole family was happy. Right. Just because of obviously I feel like I'm home here, but my wife Adriana, she felt very family oriented here from the get-go, and I think that's an ingredient to win, right? It's so all the wife's happy, I'm happy, mom happy, she's happy, so definitely happy to be back. And this past Friday to play in front of 30,000 people for what was the second time in the 3 home games. It's definitely fortunate to be in that situation.
Yeah. We kind of start from the beginning of your career. We'll just maybe touch a little bit on Edmonton. Obviously, tough season last year, and you've been through that here. I think maybe your first time. We were still trying to gain our traction a little bit. And those are tough, man. Those are tough times. You've said to me so many times on the bench in the last 5 games that you're enjoying this. Enjoying being on the other side of it, man, right? I mean, being on the other side of success. And throughout people's careers in football, you go through both sides, but usually at some point. And it's sure nice to be living the time that this franchise is right now.
Definitely, especially it feels like I never left from 21.
Yeah.
Just like I came back into the locker room with the guys, and to be able to be myself with these guys, like it's just right off the bat. That's what makes it fun too, right? Kicking and X's and O's. I feel like we've been doing that over and over, but the memories, conversations that we have outside of football, that's what you carry on, right? That's what makes it worth it. Coming back here.
Sorry, there's one more. Did you sense that this may be headed this way from Edmonton's standpoint throughout the off season, or
it just
how did you that unfold?
So I heard some rumors over the off season. I remember it was sometime in March. I picked up another hobby. I'm a semi-pro photographer now.
Yes, this is true.
And I remember I was at the FC Dallas game, and one of my buddies, he got me some credentials, and I was taking pictures. And I had seen something on social media like there might be trading me. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense, right? I had to restructure my contract. I got a bonus with them, so I'm like, I brushed it off. It doesn't make any sense, right? And then just how things started unfolding, where they started signing a lot of guys, left and right. And I'm like, this kind of, maybe they do want to go young, or I guess you say just cheaper, right? Because my contract was different over there, right? And then just the way it unfolded, that Wednesday before training camp, it was just I just had a weird feeling, right? And then like I said, just very fortunate and blessed how it happened, because I could easily have been on the streets, right, where just not a job. It's a week before training camp. It's very tough. Almost everyone's ready with their guys, and I think this is where it goes more than football. The relationships that I've been able to build with you guys, I think it goes
Absolutely,
far, right? Because it's just, I think before I got here, the reason Winnipeg's been winning is because of the people, the individuals, right? You can have great players. I feel every team has great players, but can you bring in that chemistry? And that is so hard to do. I've been in, 17, we were struggling when I was in Hamilton, 19, and then, Edmonton is just, there's great players in every locker room, but the thing is, can they gel, right? And that's something very hard to do, right? You have all these guys coming from different backgrounds, different situations coming from home, right? What are they dealing with? And here we're able to be in the locker room, to be vulnerable with each other, right? To get to, Willie's like, well, I'm struggling with this. If you see someone like Willie's caliber saying, hey, I'm struggling with this, and it's just like, you're so much more relaxed. I'm like, if he's able to open up, okay, I'm gonna open up. And then be like, you know what, Serge? You're not only playing for you, you're playing for Adriana, you're playing for your son. That's when it goes more than just making a paycheck.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I think that's what it means, like, play for your brothers. When you get to know that person and why they're doing it, that's what brings success.
When, just not to keep hammering away on what happened in Edmonton, but when you get called in and it's, thanks for coming out sort of thing, we're going to move on.
Mm-hmm.
There's that, whether you're getting phone calls or not, there's that window where there's so much uncertainty, right? And you're so open about how important your family is, not that it isn't for everybody else, but your family's with you. But there's where you're pretty vulnerable, right? You mentioned this, you don't know if you're gonna hook up with another team or what's going on. That had to be the worst because you put up good numbers last year, you're very established, but it's May 4th.
That's the thing, the timing is
really
tough.
Yeah, the timing, and it was just very frustrating because I understand, okay, hey, Serge, I'll take another pay cut. I'm all about the team, fine. But if I had put bad numbers, I would understand. But I felt like, especially once, John Ryan came in, he helped Peter a lot, our snapper. And, I finished 19 for 20 with him.
Mm.
So I understand if I would have kept going the way I did the first 8 games, which was pretty horrendous. I think I missed 4 kicks the first 9 games, right? Normally I miss 4 or 5 a year. And then to finish 19 out of 20, okay, I would understand, hey, Serge, if you was bad, okay, take another pay cut. But it's just, I felt like I was contributing to the team, felt like I was contributing to the locker room, and, I was invested into the community, right? I had signed a 2-year deal, and it's like my mindset is like, I want to stay here, and I want to, bring myself to this community. I want to help kick. I want to help develop kickers here too, right? And, so it was just very frustrating because of the numbers that we were able to put up as a field goal unit towards the second half of the season. But yeah, the uncertainty, we always talk about this. My wife and I, is just your job is so unstable, right? And that's why she's very hesitant to come up here with me. She's a school teacher, and she's like, one of us has to have a stable job in case something like that would have happened, and then I would have not been able to latch on here.
Right. Yeah. Tough.
Yes.
All right, let's kind of go back a little bit. Start back when it started with soccer. You were raised by women, right?
Yes.
Some strong women.
Yes, very strong.
And maybe tell us about your upbringing and how you got into football and kind of transition, I think, from soccer. Tell us about your story.
So I was raised by my mom, my 2 aunts, my tia Rosie, my tia Berta, and my grandma, Grandma Maria. To this day, she's very stubborn. So I was raised by 4 very strong women, along with my 2 uncles, my tio Ramon, may he rest in peace, and my tio Lupe, right? Tio Lupe's uncle. And I was a big, big soccer fan. In South Texas, is just soccer's religion, right? We're 5 minutes from the border, so just soccer's our thing, right? And I played a little bit of football in middle school. Didn't take it too serious. But when I got to high school, I played soccer. I played goalie. I was in band. I was in the drum line. And I played baseball. Baseball was my first love. So the way it works in the States, or at least in Texas, you have football in the fall and soccer in the spring, or spring/winter. So it allowed me to, in case in the future I wanted to do both, right? And I remember it was like in August of my freshman year. It was a Wednesday. I remember it was a Wednesday because Wednesdays we did not have band practice. So I went to Coachella with the soccer buddies. We were just chilling. And I remember my goalkeeper coach, Juan Osuna, who was a kicker back in the day. He had some footballs there along with my soccer coach, Coach Tomes, who's like my dad. They were like, hey, we were just kicking football, shooting shit, thinking nothing serious about it, right? This was in August. Going through the season, I played soccer. And come May, Coach Tomes, my head coach from soccer, he's like, hey, Sergio, the football team's looking for a kicker. And you remember the last time we were kicking in August? I'm like, yeah. He's like, we should go try out. I was like, all right. So they had set up a date for me. And, at the time I was dating my first girlfriend ever, so I was in puppy love, right? And she's like, Sergio, you better not go try out because then all the cheerleaders are going to like you. I'm over here all, in love thinking. So I didn't go. to the tryout for like a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Because of that?
Because of that, all right? It was my first girlfriend and everything,
Yeah.
right? And so I didn't show up, and my neighbor, who I admired a lot, Homer Acevedo, he dragged me to the football tryout. And I kicked a couple days in a row, didn't think much of it. That was in May. School was over. We're in summer, and now it's August the 8th, 2006. We're in band camp, my sophomore year. We're band to go. It's a state year. So in Texas, you get to compete for state every other year. So that sophomore year was my sophomore year was my year to compete for state. And our high school was about 6,000 kids. So our band was about 300 kids. So we had Mr. Ruben Adame, our band director. He was up on a large podium, and we had speakers all around the football field where we practice band. And then out of nowhere, he yells my name, Sergio, Coach Villaseñor, the head coach for football, wants to talk to you. I'm like, I question myself, why does he want to talk to me? I had totally forgotten about the football tryout. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, go meet him at his office. I was like, okay, so I go, and I remember I entered to the weight room, and Coach Aaron Garcia, the special teams coordinator, bald-headed guy, he was doing cable flies on the cable machine, and just sweat is just coming down his head. Just big old muscular guy. I was scared to death. And he's like, Sergio, come into the locker room. What? So I remember if you ever get to come visit La Joya, Texas, it's a weight room. You go into the locker room, and there's a big old coyote painted, and it says Coyote Den, Coyote Den. And I remember seeing 2 lockers. I see Richard Cantu, number 24, and Joe Garza, number 27. They were the only 2 sophomores on the varsity team. And then I see number 26, Sergio Castillo. They're like, Sergio, you'll be a coyote. And I was like, what?
Wow.
So then
They had it set up for you.
They did. I had totally forgotten about the tryout back in May.
Yeah.
I go to Coach Villaseñor, I introduce myself again, and he's like, Sergio, come crash to the team, blah, blah, blah. Mind you, I don't like football. I don't understand it. My thing is soccer and baseball and band. And I'm like, look, if I can't march, with the band, I'm not going to play football. And we came up with a schedule. So every day at 6 a.m., my mom would drive me to school. I practice in the morning, and I get ready for school. And after school, I had band practice.
Were you in the band?
I was in the drum line.
Yeah. Okay.
So in our drum line, I was a 5th bass drum out of 6. We had 6 bass drums. And then we had the snare drums, we had 5. And then we had cymbal players, we had another 6 or 7. So we're a pretty big drum line.
Wow.
And my first kick ever was a game winner. It was Friday the 13th, October 13th, 2006. We were playing at Donna High School. It was 26 yards left hash. It was raining. I hit the ball. Back then I didn't have any technique at all, so I just bent it right like a soccer player. I didn't know what to do. What I do? I screamed "Lord." And I did a soccer celebration where I dove, head first, and that's the only time I got my jersey dirty on the grass.
Because you didn't even know how to put on shoulder
Oh
pads.
no, nothing, man. Like
I was sure he still does. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah. And that's how I started my career at La Jolla.
That's something else.
So I was very fortunate, I was able to do band, football.
Jeez.
And then in the spring, I would do, we had concert season. My thing was playing the marimbas, the xylophone, the bells, with the mallets, and I played soccer.
Nice.
So the one thing I did miss out, not so much, but in my freshman year in band, after we were done marching, we had these bomb-ass tacos, barbecue tacos from Felix Tacos, which are still there, by the way. And they would it would be fajita with sausage with a little barbecue sauce. So after you're done marching, we get you 2 tacos. Badass, right? Well, now I'll play football my sophomore year. I'm not going to be able to get them. I was like, what the heck? So what I started doing is I started leaving my bass drum next to my kicking net. So my boys, Steven and Roger, when they picked up my drum, they would leave me 2 tacos and a kicking bag.
There you go.
And I'm eating them.
Even back then. There you go. So after high school, and you decide on West Texas A&M. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
You had many offers.
That was only one. Old West Texas A&M. I remember it was my kicking coach, Coach Paul Osbury, was sending just my film to schools left and right, and they were all like, "Oh, we'll think about it." And he calls West Texas A&M. This is February 3rd, 2009. It's on a Monday. February 4th is signing day, or the first day of signing day, right? And he's talking to Coach Deason, who was a special teams coordinator at the time. And Coach Deason said the same thing. "Oh, we'll think about it." Coach Paul, he winks at me and he's like, "Well, Sergio has 6 other offers on the line. Signing day's tomorrow. Oh, man, God. 20 minutes later, Coach Carthel, the head coach. Sergio, would you want to be a Buffalo? And I'm like, heck yeah. We'll sign tomorrow.
Oh, good special teams coach you had.
Yeah.
So, and then I read you almost like didn't go or left, right? Because of
so
like a culture that was
it was a
like
big
a racism thing.
It was a big culture shock. The only time I saw white people was with Border Patrol. So I kind of had like a negative kind of feeling with them, and it's just where I'm from, there's just a lot of people who are, they cross for a better life. They come to the U.S. for a better life, and a lot of my family, right? And I'm very fortunate that I was born in the States and I'm a U.S. citizen, right? And it frustrates me to this day when I see kids who have that citizenship and are taking advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah.
And yet you have a lot of other kids who can only go so far because they don't have that citizenship, right? So yes, I go to West Texas A&M. It's the first time I see, just a different color than mine, constantly, right? So after 2 weeks, there was the border wall was a big issue back in 2009, and when people say jokes, but they're not joking.
Yeah.
They kept making jokes like that, and a beaner, this and that, and I ate beans, so I mean it's true, right? A little bit, right? But it just at the time I had never really faced that. I had really been away from home, and I called my mom, crying, and I'm like, hey, I'm coming home. I can't deal with this, discrimination. I feel like I'm being racist. And
were these guys on your team or just poor people?
There were just both,
general. Yeah.
both, mainly on the, and it was just a couple guys on the team, but it's just a very different culture, where I'm from, right? And so I called my mom, like, hey, Mom, I'm coming home. She's like, look, Junior, she called me Junior, right? The only time she called me second was when I'm in trouble. She's like, Junior, you talked a big game, you're gonna go to college, you're gonna do this and that. You better stick to your word. And I'm like, nope, I'm coming home. Like I couldn't deal with it. Well, she calls my kicking coach, Coach Paulsbury, the one that helped me get the scholarship. He's like, Sergio, if you come back home, you raise my phone number and don't ever call me again.
Wow.
And that meant a lot. I was like, you know what? Because he did his part, right? And he's like, it's time to move on. And that helped me stick with it. So, but yeah, I'm just put after 2.
So how did that improve over time? Like, was it just like,
I think
you kind of just,
so I just started talking with started to meet with other guys.
Yeah.
Back then I was very quiet, I had a thicker accent. My English wasn't English, it was Spanglish. And I think that's what a lot of people made fun of me too, right? Because I couldn't really, when I get nervous back then, I would go back to Spanish.
okay.
I'd be talking, the full sentence would be English and Spanish. And then, just kept meeting different people within the university and the team. I started we're just leaning on those people, right? And I got to meet different Hispanics, Latinos in West Texas. So that helped out a lot. I remember there was a couple, there was twins, the Reyes twins on the team. They didn't know they could be Spanish though. So when I saw them last year, I was all excited. But their brother-in-law, Julio Tudon, which I'm very close to this day, Chicano just like me, they introduced me to him, and he helped me a lot through that, first couple of years.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple minutes ago about being proud to be born in the U.S. and people taking advantage of the opportunity. Man, it's heartbreaking because you grew up right on a border town. To see these people from Mexico and from Guatemala and all these people that are trying to come through Mexico to get into the States, they're crossing the rivers, they're hiding. It's in the back of a human trafficking in the back of a truck. It's sad.
It is sad, and it's just like,
I just want to get all political here.
No,
it's a big deal, right?
It's real life.
Town, right?
It's real life, because in Mexico, either you die of hunger, right? Because you don't, you don't make enough money, right? Or you die trying, right? And like I said, I have a lot of friends and relatives that have gone through that, right? They've crossed the legal way for a better life, right? Because if not, they're going to die over there. And I feel like that's what some people don't understand, is just like how the living situation is over there, right? And it's very frustrating when, like I said, when I see kids who have the citizenship. I'm like, man, you have everything. Take advantage of it. It doesn't matter if you want to do band, you want to do sports, shoot, even debate team, take advantage of all the resources that you have, right? So, and I was very fortunate at a young age in 6th grade where it clicked. Where it's like, you know what? I have all these free resources here, because I would see all my cousins back in Mexico, how they didn't have money just for like a pencil.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I'm over here, I'm given everything, even though my situation still, I grew up with everything. And when I say everything, I grew up with love, good lessons. We might not have all the money, but it's like I grew up around that, and what better than that, right? So, going back to, just people coming over here, they're trying to get a better life. That's all it is, that's all it is.
So to transition into something back to football, a little less, less important. No, I mean really, in comparison to the previous topic. But so you finish college, and then you're undrafted, sign in Atlanta. We won't run the gauntlet because after we talked about kickers,
Oh man, been everywhere.
you go everywhere. But you're going to Atlanta. I know you talk about that as your first NFL stop, but realistically, did you understand the dynamic at the time of they had Matt Bryant at the time, which was I don't think he was the best. Yeah, he was the best. So like,
I knew I was going as I remember they called my other king coach at the time, Coach Gary Zombie. He calls me at the time. He's like, Serge, Falcons need someone who can kick off and punt. And I'm like, shit, I'll clean the rest of them if I have to. Sure. Mind you, I had kicked off and punt all my 4 years in college. So I was like, you're ready? I'm like, yeah, I've been doing it all along.
Sure.
So, right. And I remember I showed up to a tryout, and it was weird. I signed the contract first, and then I do the workout.
Oh.
Normally it's the opposite.
Yeah.
And Coach Armstrong, the special teams coach at the time, he's like, all right, Serge, we're going to do, I think it was like 12 or 16 punts at the time. We're going to do 4 right, 4 left, and then we'll switch the fields. And I don't even get past 3 or 4. My punts are so bad. And he's like, Serge, we're done. And I just go banging to him. I'm like, Coach, just let me kick some field goals. He's like, no. I'm like, Coach, just let me kick some field goals. Well, the way the Falcons 3 practice fields are is 3 grass fields, and then they have their indoor. And the kickers are on the 3rd practice field. But then at the time, guys who were doing their rehab was also in the 3rd practice field. William Jones had just broken his foot or something the year before. He was doing his rehab. And then I guess he overheard me begging to let me kick him. He tells the coach, let the kid kick.
No shit.
I make like 14 or 15 in a row. Like, Serge, if it wasn't for you, he was about to cut your ass.
Yeah.
Thank you with Julio Jones.
Right? And then, so I knew I was just there for a camp, like, right? Matt Bryant, he's a legend. And I remember I got to...
But so what? I mean, that's a foot in the door, right?
Yeah, it was a foot in the door, and, I was able to play, the one inter-squad game against Tennessee, and I had 1 preseason game, went 2 for 2, I ended up punting well. And the next week we were going to Houston, Texas. I was so excited. Sure. All my family was over. My family from Mexico was across the border watching me play. And then I get cut the next day. I'm like, man. And that's when I got introduced to the business side. There was a linebacker that had gotten hurt. They needed to replace him. And, I was just a camp leg. And that's when I got hit. I'm like, oh, this is how this works.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's so many players, younger players especially, don't understand that side of it. Where it is oftentimes a numbers scenario where if you need a spot in one position, someone has to go. Unfortunately, and it's shitty. It's sad to make it sound like that, but and sometimes, especially when you're a young guy undrafted, you get caught up in that shit.
Yeah, and it's just like you said, it's just a numbers game. But the way I saw it, I was like, man, I was just very fortunate. I got to a kid from La Jolla, Texas.
When you saw the first one go through, the first one ever?
So man, it was. I think they were both short. Both field. I was 36, right? But it's just when I made the first one, I was like, and then we're playing the Georgia Dome, and I was like, wow, I can do this. That's when it hit me. I was like, wow, I can do this, and it just sense of relief, man.
Sure.
Right. So, but yeah, that's where the whole journey started in Atlanta.
So I'm looking at the timeline here, Sergio, and it's interesting. So the Falcons say thanks in August of 2014, and then you sign here about a year later.
Mm-hmm.
What happened in that window when the year?
So when I got released from Atlanta, my soccer coach, Coach Gomez, was like my dad. He now has had a soccer job in Southside High School in San Antonio, Texas. He's like, he said, he'll come work for me and come train while you get on another team. My agent at the time was telling me, hey, Serge, you know this, you did well. Maybe there might be another shot. So I was like, all right. That turned into a year.
Yeah.
While I was working at Southside High, I was making $11 an hour. And I was basically his assistant for soccer. And I was working in an alternative center, so where all the kids misbehave and they'll set them there for a certain amount of time. And but I didn't have a car, so I had to take a bus every day to work. And every day I left in the morning, 4:22 in the morning.
Jeez.
I got to the school at 5:46 in the morning. I got in touch with the custodian. He opened me in the gym, and I was able to work out from 6 to 7:30, and then I worked from 8 to 3. We had soccer practice after school, and then do it all over again. Yeah. And that was my routine for a whole year. And this is where I learned that people are brought into your life for a reason, season, or lifetime. A reason to give you a message or a lesson in life. There's some people only in your life for a season. Your season being in high school, season being in college, etc. And there's some people that brought into your life for a lifetime, forever. My bus driver, Mr. Andre Fulton, was brought into my life for a reason and a short season of 2 months. In San Antonio, the way the bus system works, they change your route every 3 months, the bus drivers. So one day, Mr. Fulton, he asked me, hey, Serge, why are you carrying your book bag and your footballs with you every day? What's your story? Tell me about you. And I started telling him, I just got cut by Atlanta, and I'm trying to pursue my master's to become a principal, high school, real school. I was like, okay. So he starts telling me his story, right? And kind of find out he's a millionaire. And I'm like, man, first of all, and I'm like, Mr. Fulton, if you're a millionaire, why are you driving a bus for in the morning? It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And he said, Serge, I do what's inspired. The first 2 seconds I'm like, wow, respect for this guy. And then I'm like, no, this guy's bullshitting me. Right? A couple weeks go by. It's an hour and 24-minute bus ride. Our relationship grows. There's only 5 people on the bus. So we just start chit-chatting. And it grows. One Friday morning, he drops me off at school. Said, here's my address. My wife and my kids, we're going to have dinner. You're more than welcome to come and join if you like. All right? I show up that Sunday. Dude had a freaking mansion.
Sure, I knew it.
A mansion. Him and his wife were big-time real estate agents on the side. Next thing I started seeing his face on billboards in San Antonio. I was caught. I'm like, Mr. Fulton, teach me, feed me your view. He's like, all right, be ready tomorrow morning. I'm so excited. He's like, Serge, have you ever heard of the vision board? I'm like, no. He's like, there's a quote, and it says, write the vision plainly down on tablet, so he or she who reads them may run with it. Write the goals, write the vision down on paper. I'm like, okay, it's too easy. He's like, Serge, what I want you to do is, when you get on the computer, and I want you to print pictures of your dreams. I'm like, okay. And he's like, but I want you to think real good about these dreams. And then I want you to get a postboard and glue them on there. I was like, all right. So I started thinking of these dreams, right? The first dream was 2 pictures. They consisted of 2 wedding rings. And it was a cartoon picture. And it was just like a lot of people hanging out at a barbecue. And I titled it Castillo's Family Reunion. My biggest dream was to have a family. I grew up with my dad. So for me, I never knew what it meant to eat at the dinner table with mom and dad. I had my uncles and I would go to my best friends, hang out with them and also with their family. But I always felt like I was missing something, right? So that's my biggest dream, is to have a family. The second one is I put 3 pictures. Put the NFL and the CFL logo, and then I put a picture of me kicking with Atlanta Falcons jersey. Like, I want to get back into the league. Third one, I titled it Principal Castillo. I want to be a principal, right? I was pursuing my master's at the time. Yeah. So I put those three dreams on the postboard. Next morning, I come out. Mr. Fulton picks me up. I'm like, boom, here's my vision board. He's like, all right, Serge, explain me this dream. Explain me this dream. Explain me this dream. So I'm telling him, okay, I want to be a family man, right? I want to have a family. And it's like, these thoughts come in the back of my mind. Serge, you didn't have a dad. Your mom never met her dad. What makes you think you're going to break inside? The second dream, I want to play pro, right? 32 teams in the NFL, 9 in Canada, 41 jobs in the whole world. What makes me think I'm going to be one of the 41? I'm thinking of all these odds now, right? And the third one was to become a principal. I was done with football in college, so I didn't have a scholarship no more. How am I going to pay for my school? And it's like it's a full-time career in my life. Like I said here, 60 to 72% of the thoughts you think are negative. When you walk, do you think left, right, or you just walk? No, you just walk. He's like, your mind is so good at thinking negative, it doesn't have to try. It's like walking. And people say, well, think positive. It's like, oh shit, well, how do you do it?
Yeah.
He said, Serge, that vision board is going to be the first thing you see when you wake up. It's going to be the last thing you see before you go to bed. And it's going to remind you on bad days, because you're going to have them, who you're going to become in the future. So all the times that I got cut, which was probably more than 10 now, when I tore my ACL in 2017, people ask me, what kept you going? Obviously, I had my circle of friends, my wife, my family, right? You are what you eat, you are what you think. I kept seeing that vision board, kept feeding my mind where I was going. Every day I printed out a contract. Every day. And I just put a different date and a different team. And I was just pricing my signature. Why? Because we're emotional people. You watch a funny movie, you laugh, you watch a scary one, you tense up. I know the emotion of signing a contract, of how pumped it gets me. So if I can create that positive emotion every morning, I'm like, let's fucking go.
Sure.
So it's wild, man. That's a wild story.
Yeah.
Do you still talk to the bus drivers?
I did. So when I made it to the NFL and they made a story about the vision board, I finally found him on Facebook. It took me years to find him. And I sent him the story about the vision board, and it was like crazy. I was just riding the bus with him, 6-8 years ago.
Yeah, that's wild.
So you have your first stop here, right? Or your first of 3 here, and then Ottawa, and then Hamilton. And you mentioned the ACL injury. That was here, was it not?
Yeah, October 6th, 2017.
Okay. And
I was trying to be an athlete.
yeah,
Back then your boy was 182 pounds with a little six-pack, thinking he could be fast. Saw Maurice Leggett, try to cut.
I remember watching it.
Yeah.
I remember watching it. You knew right away.
Yeah, I knew, as soon as I planted and wanted to cut to my left, the knee buckled, and I'm like, this is different. This is weird. And I just knew right off the bat. And it was just, back then I used to be more daredevil. I would want to make tackles, and now I only have 5 sprints a year. And I'm going to use them when I
Right. So that was also was that also the same season where you attempted to fake and
Oh my gosh, yeah, we're losing 30-something-0 against Calgary, and we have been practicing fake, on punt. That's when I used to punt back in the day. And then we're in the middle of the field and had to run to the hash and then throw it to the guy that goes out. I don't know what position it is. And in practice, everything is fine because there's no flying bullets, right?
Yeah.
Well, when they come to me, Serge, we need to spark an offense. I'm like, all right, let's do it, right? And I remember I could have sworn I ran to the hash. Like, you look at the film, I only took 2 steps. Next thing you know, as soon as I let the ball go, I just feel like this train ran over me. Good thing I didn't see him. If not, I would have got it. I probably would have thrown the ball. And I just got rocked. Threw the ball, it was incomplete. The next day I was sore as heck. I was like, I know what you guys feel. Except I only had 1 play that I got hit.
Yeah.
So you go through. You end up back in BC in 2019, and so you were there all season. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. All season.
And you guys had a bad year there.
Yeah.
Where was that?
Yeah.
Was Mike Riley there at that point?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, that was his
first year, maybe.
first year. Yep.
Okay. So let's kind of transition through 2019 and then in 2020, and how the NFL opportunity kind of came to be.
So 2019, I finished in BC. 2020, I go to the XFL, Houston Roughnecks. COVID happened. No NFL happened. Calls happened after that. So I signed a 2-year deal with BC, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done chasing it, right? It's not happening. I'm getting older. I get that. And COVID happened. They gave us the option where, how you could stay your contract and
Yes.
or you can get out of it and try for the NFL, right? And I know we said in our contract we're going to get some type of salary. And I did not make this decision on my own because now it was not about me. We were pregnant. My wife was pregnant at the time. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to present 2 options to her. Whatever she decides, we're going to go with it, because we have a baby on the way.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Sergio, back when I met you in 2015, you said you were going to be NFL. You're going to get out of that contract. I was like, all right, let's go. I could have sworn she was going to stay. I could have sworn she was going to say, we need to have some type of security, stability.
Yeah.
Some type of income coming in. You're going to stay in that country. No, she said, you're getting out of the country. I was like, all right, let's go. Had a couple of tryouts, went to Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Did well, did not get signed. And then I remember it was a Thursday morning. And I remember my agent called me, he's like, hey, sir, the Jets might be flying you in. You need a combo guy. I'm like, hey, that's me, you know? And sure enough, they're like, hey, sir, your flight is like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. I'm like, oh, it's Thursday, you know? I'm running off chones, you know, underwear, so I have time to do some laundry. They call me at 2 hours later, like 11 o'clock. They're like, hey, sir, your flight is at 2:30. I'm like, all right, I'm from Lubbock, Texas, because we need you in tonight to start the COVID process. It's a 5 days test. Lubbock is an hour, 45 minutes. It was 11 o'clock. I called my girl. I'm like, hey, you got to get out of school right now. She's like, why? I'm like, I got to travel with Jets, but I got to go to Lubbock. I packed literally 2 underwears, 2 shorts, shirt, and my cleats. And I get there, it was like 39 degrees Fahrenheit. And no sweater. I was like, God damn. Yeah, so I do the 5 days of COVID testing, right? And we finally do the tryout. And it's me and Darren Powerlaku.
Yeah.
Do the tryout. We both go 5 for 7 on field goals, you know, even, dead even. But then on punts, I don't know what happened. I just started booming. I had like 10 or 12 punts, and they were all outside the numbers. Not one wobbly, all spiral nose over. And Lyra was like, man, you've been practicing on punting? I'm like, not really. And my mom like, not really, but it was just my day. I just had a day.
Yeah.
And I was still kind of nervous, you know, I did very well in punting, and I think that's what's really separating me. They signed me, right? So I'm all excited, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go back to bed. It was a Wednesday. You know, I'm like, I'm excited to go back to bed because I just slept the night before. I was so anxious. They're like, Serge, we have practice an hour and a half. I'm like, oh man. They're like, but you can go have some lunch. I was like, all right, so I go have some lunch. Well, it was COVID, right? So when there's only one person per table, and I'm eating my lunch, right? And out of nowhere, this lady, kind of like my grandma's age, comes up to me, and we start chit-chatting, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, Spanish? I'm like, see? And she's like, oh, we started talking, blah, blah, blah. She's like, after a couple of minutes, she's like, hey, mijo, eat some. She's like, hey, you can't be eating here. It's only for the players. And I'm like,
I've heard that he told.
and she's like, you got to get back to work. I'm like, I am one of the players.
Yeah.
And she didn't believe it. And I showed her my badge and everything. She's like, oh, I'm so sorry, amigo. She called everyone from the lunchroom, the custodians. There was like 10 or 12 Latinos in there. Man, after that, they treated me like a king.
Well, from what I remember, that in the New York Jets story that they did on their website, you were only the second Latino kicker in their history, I think.
Yeah.
So that's probably why.
As it is, there's not many Latinos kicking in the or playing in the NFL, right? And I was just so happy to be there. I'm back. You know, Sam Ficken was kicking really well at the time.
Yeah.
And week one, the first week that I was there, we go to Miami, and Sam kicks a 55, and he's like 100% at the time. Like I said, I'm happy just to be there. I don't care if I play it down. It took me 6 years after college to finally make it to the NFL. I'm happy. Well, I remember it was Tuesday. Tuesday's the day off, right? I go get a little workout in. Juan, our custodian, he's like, he's a very spiritual guy. I'm a spiritual guy too, right? Religious guy. He's like, he said, just pray to God just to give you a chance. I struggle with praying. I don't pray. I write to him. So I'm like, all right, Juan, I'm about to leave the facility. I'll pray to him tonight. So Wednesday's always day one in the NFL. We play on Sundays, right? So I'm about to go to bed. I'm like, you know what, God, if it's in your will, let me play. Next day, Sam Ficken pops his groin.
No way.
I'm like, what? Coach Boyd, special teams coach, he's like, can you kick? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And so they backed up. Field goal period was supposed to be like in 5 minutes. They moved it another 10, 15 minutes so I could start warming up. And I remember the way they did it was you had 2 field goal periods. The first period, you only had 3 field goals. You started from PAT to the mid-40s. And then they do an offensive period or defense period. And then you went from mid-40s to high mid-50s. That's how they did it. And I ended up going 6 for 6 that day. And I can't remember who came up to me, what coach. He's like, Sergio, you just got me $1,000. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, we bet it, with the other coaches, and I bet that you were make all.
Wow.
So it's not a bad first day, right?
That's okay.
And so they told me, hey, Sergio, Ficken is day to day. So I was like, all right. So day 2, specialists, we don't practice at all. Day 3, Sergio, you're going to go kick a game. The Ficken might play Sunday, but you're going to get the reps today. All right. So finally, Friday, Saturday comes along, and I said, you'll play tomorrow. All at 1.
Is this a home game?
This is a home game.
Okay.
It was October 25th.
Fourth.
24th, you're activated to the active
Yeah,
roster.
I think it was the 25th.
You're right, yeah.
2020 is when he debuted it. And have y'all ever seen the movie The Rookie?
Oh, yeah.
Dennis Quaid?
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite movies. I'm a big visionary guy.
Yeah.
There's this scene where he calls his wife and he tells him, "Hey, can you ring my sports coat to Texas State,
Arlington.
Arlington?"
Yeah.
And I envisioned that moment so many times. I called Coach Lomez, I called my mom, I called Adriana, and I called people who have helped me along the way. But those were the first 3 people that I called because they've been with me throughout the whole journey. And I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow at 1 o'clock?" And I'm like, "Nothing. Why?" I'm like, "We'll turn on CBS because your boy's playing."
Yeah.
And
What a moment, eh?
oh, yes. And so Sam Darnold had gotten hurt, so Joe Flacco was starting. And so him and Frank Ward, boom, boom, they're passing, they're running. First drive, we get a real short. First, we get a field goal right off the bat, just to lay off the nerves, 29 yards. Boom. Make it, and as I'm going as soon as I kick it, so I get to the sideline, these tears start coming down because I start reminiscing on the journey just to get there, right? All the sacrifice my mom had to do. I remember my mom would save up all the money she had, and sometimes I had to ask for friends for money, family and friends, just to go to these kicking camps in Arizona or Florida, and what do you want for Christmas, Drew? I just want to go to a kicking camp. I just want to learn, right? And I started thinking about that. When I told when I first met my girl, she was like, "Sergio, you focus on you don't have to pay the bills." Because I know this journey's hard. Because she used to play pro soccer back in Israel, so she understands how this journey is. And so that came to mind when I tore my ACL, and she was there, my mom was there, and these tears just start coming down, and I had to brush them away real quick. It was really the first drive of the game.
Right.
And I ended up kicking an extra point, and I was like, wow, it finally happened. And I'm like, man, if I don't play again, I'm happy.
Sure.
And then, so next week, again, we're day 1. Sergio, Sanfican is a maybe, so I kick day 1. Day 3, I kick again. And then Sergio, we don't know if you're playing or not. And so earlier in the week of that second week that I might play, I call Adriana and I call my mom. I'm like, buy a ticket to Kansas City in case I play, because that's the only team they were playing with fans.
Yes.
And they're not 25%. You might ask, why didn't you pay for it? Because you get paid every 2 weeks, and I didn't have any money.
So on the flight to Kansas City, you wrote the letters.
Yes. So when I was in 6th grade, I had a dream, and I saw my mom and my future wife watching me play, and my future wife was pregnant. I was since a child's middle school, 6th grade, 12 years old. I didn't know who my girl was going to be, right? But I kept having that dream at least once a year. And then when I tore my ACL, it was constant. It was like a reminder, Serge, don't give up, keep going. I was like, so on the plane ride to Kansas City, I read a letter to my mom and to Adriana. I had never told anyone about that dream, about how my dream was about to come true on November 1st against Kansas City, which is my 30th birthday.
Same day as the game?
Yeah. November 1st.
And what did you kick like a 50-yard?
So yes, I started with a 39, and I remember looking up at my mom and Adriana. They were up there with Jesus Christ. Those only tickets they gave us all the way up there.
Yeah.
And I just saw because they had a big old poncho for the Jets, and I remember pointing at them, and then so we switch going to the other side. And they yell punt. It's the second quarter, and two things come to my mind. I'm like, Sam Ficken might be coming back next week, and I'm like, shoot, I have a baby coming. I have to put food on the table now. I see it's a 50-something yarder. I tell Boyer, I'm like, fuck it, let's kick it. And that's just the relationship we had, He's like, you sure? And I don't even give him the opportunity. I just start running on the field, and I just start giving him the sign, let's go. He's like, oh, punt off, field goal. And I remember I missed him the shit out of the ball. I towed it. I'm like, oh my God, this ball's not even going to reach, and I'm about to be embarrassed on national TV. I don't even care if I make it. I'm telling myself as it came off my foot. So I started asking, did I reach it? And something like, as you made it, fool. And I was just like, hell yeah, 55 yards. And it had like another 8-9 yards to spare to go. And I remember just pointing to AJ and my mom, and we were kicking a 48 after that. And then
What a moment.
oh, it was
In the same game.
in the same game.
Wow.
And then right before the half, I got blocked. As soon as I took my jab step, I saw someone, red jersey, coming on the right side. You heard the double thud. Next thing you know, I think I'm running fast. I look at the replay. I look slow motion.
Yeah.
So that was my biggest game. Well, I think the following week we had a Monday night game against New
Yes.
England. I had a 35 and a 50, and I started well the first 6 games, and all of a sudden, like, I started the last 2 weeks because I played 7 games. The last 2, the 6th and the 7th week, I put this pressure on myself that I had never had before to be perfect. I don't know why, and it was just weird. And then I started dealing with anxiety. I couldn't go anywhere without. I felt like I was just in a box and I couldn't breathe. And the 7th game, it just fell apart. I had started with a 45-yarder in the first quarter against Seattle, and then
At home?
no, in Seattle. Mind you, there's no fans though, right? So
True, yeah.
it was still kind of. It's not like, oh, it was loud or anything. In the second quarter, I all went to shit. I missed a 42, 41, and a 38.
It's not in the same quarter?
Same quarter.
Shit.
And it's just, I know how the business works, especially in the NFL.
Yeah.
I knew as soon as I got on the plane, I called AJ. I'm like, start packing the bags. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm gonna get cut. Like, I just know how this works.
Right.
And fortunately, they cut me, but they signed me to the P squad. So I was able to finish the practice roster the following year, and that's how Jared was born in New Jersey.
So playing with the whole no fans thing, we obviously didn't do that if your season was missed. But I ended up going to to see a buddy of mine in Arizona for a game, and it was a friends and family only.
Yes, Arizona will do that. Yeah.
So there was maybe 300 or 400 people there, and it was one of the weirdest football experiences I've ever had. It just
I heard everything.
you could hear everything. And the guy I went with, a buddy of mine, so they were serving, like, it was the concessions were open and everything. It was a full on operation, except it was like 300 or 400 people. Like, it was like a practice.
Yeah, so
So the guy my buddy that I went with he was into the beers pretty good, and he didn't really put it together that all the people sitting around us are friends or family of the guys on the field. So, so we're down there to watch Chris Strover. So
Yeah.
Kyle Murray has a couple of one-offs, and he says, Jesus, hey, put Chris Scriveler in. And I'm just like, oh my God. Because everybody can hear everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's all, like, the players can hear everything, families hear. So what an experience for a player. It must have been pretty weird to be in those.
it just felt like you were in a practice
Yeah.
the whole time, right? Especially because you could hear everything that was being communicated on offense and defense,
Yeah.
right? So it was definitely different. When we played at home, they tried to put like the noise,
Yeah.
but it just wasn't the same.
No.
It wasn't the same. So the one game I said I got to play in front of fans was in Kansas, 25%, but it was out either way.
Sure.
I can only imagine that thing at 100% capacity. Yeah.
And when you're going from 0 to that, it probably feels like a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
We've kept you a long time.
No, it's all good.
I just want to kind of, fast forward to when you came back in 2021. So BC had your rights still.
Correct.
Yeah, and we make that deal right there. Talk about, first of all, that deal, because that was, so, I mean, that was around the trade deadline, right? October 19, it says here. That would have been later that year because of the season was different.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I don't know the exact date.
It says October 19 we made the deal.
Okay, so yeah, I mean,
You might have been, some of those.
I don't want to get us in trouble here, so I don't want to say, I would have been.
No speak English.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, shit, it was a franchise-changing trade. Right? I
Yeah.
mean, that Grey Cup game, going to Hamilton is a nightmare for kickers sometimes, and a game where our guy kicked 5 field goals.
Yeah.
We
Yeah, well, let's talk about that a little bit.
probably not sitting here with 2 Grey Cups right in a row without that. So, well, we're
So-
not.
Darren touched on it. That place is notorious for the weird winds, and you know you look at the statistical report from that day, and it'll say winds from wherever for like 18 to 20 kilometers an hour, and it's like bullshit. It's swirling all
It
over
was
the place.
way
It was
more.
crazy.
It felt like I was back home in Amarillo.
Oh yeah,
And that's where I feel when I train kickers and when I train by myself and I have a bad day over there, I'm like, or if I hear there's gonna be wind here, I'm like, if you kick in Amarillo, if you kick anywhere, because over there, like it's a 25 miles per hour day is a normal day for us, right? If it gets to 30, I don't practice because you kick the ball 10 yards and it just goes, it's gone, right? So that brought me peace going into that game.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you know what? I train this every day. Now, it was pretty strong, normal than usual, right?
Yeah.
In 2017, all the games that I had in Hamilton there was not a win like that,
Really?
that strong, right? Could have been that we're later in December too,
Yeah.
right? But that year, I had mentioned to you guys I was dealing with anxiety in 2020, and then my son was born, and then my anxiety went up the roof. Like, it was just ridiculous. I had a macho type of mindset when people said, "Oh, I'm depressed," or "I'm going through anxiety," and I thought, "No, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Just deal with it." But when I went through it, I'm like, "Oh shit, this is real," right? And for me, I had never thought about death, right? And now, obviously, as soon as my son was born, I don't know why. It's just like, for me, it's like I'm scared of losing my son or my wife. And it was just a constant thing, and I couldn't get over it. It was so bad. So my wife and I, we own a gym in Amarillo. And the high school where she used to work at until this past year, that gym is right next to her high school where she works at. And she's a Spanish teacher and soccer coach. And I will start gym classes at 8, and she starts her school teaching at 8, right? My anxiety was so bad. Normally, I like to be there early to the gym. She takes off at the last second possible to get to school. My anxiety was so bad, I would take off at the same time as her because I wanted to make sure she got to school. So I was dealing with some hardcore anxiety. So when to come over here to Winnipeg in 21, I didn't want to because I'm like, if I'm not watching her, like not watching her step, but it's just like, I don't know how I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where I go back to being vulnerable with the guys, and right off the bat. And you know, I deal with this too. I do, like, you start with, it's like, oh, I'm not the only one. Now I can lean on someone. And so that helped me through. And obviously, you know, it was 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So, you know, the family was able to come up at least to 3 games, which was still good. You know, at the time, Jared, I had to pay for a ticket, right? Now that he's 2 years old, it's like, damn. And obviously having the support from you guys played as well. You know, he's like, me being vulnerable, letting him know about that, and be like, well, we'll find a way. We'll help you guys out. Man, like that went a long way. And that's when he was like, all right, let's go to Winnipeg.
So you kicked the 5 field goals, make the argument of the Grey Cup MVP, and then I remember being in the locker room afterwards. Your family was in there,
Yeah.
right? And then, like, a lot of guys had a lot of fun after winning that Grey Cup. You had a lot of fun. I still remember the parade kind of thing.
yeah.
Had the wrestling
Mask, yeah.
So it's funny because you're telling me about the anxiety you went through, but it's almost like that's felt like a big exhale or something.
Yeah.
It made it through that one cup.
And here's the thing, I was trying to find myself again. Because I'm like, the last game I had played before coming here was when I went 1 for 4 against Seattle.
Right.
And I have all these doubts. I'm like, well, can I do it? Can I kick? And then I come here, the first game I missed a 37. And I'm like, what the heck?
Did you miss your first one?
No, it wasn't the first one, but I think it was the third one. And then I came back, and I think we were up by 7 in the fourth against Montreal, and I hit a 45, something like that. I'm like, okay, I'm able to close it out. Okay, right? So that gave me some confidence. A big confidence booster was Calgary.
Yeah.
And it was like 3 45 plus yarders.
Yes.
And that was a big confidence booster, right? And I'm like, you know what? I'm back. And I noticed I was back because the day of the game, I had a 1-day pass at Good Life. So I'm like, no, I'm just gonna go in the sauna. It was more relaxed. It was the morning enough. I got a bus and I went to the Good Life. While I'm walking in, right, I'm big on pre-workout, right? I see a C4. I'm just gonna take a couple sips before you know it. I take the whole thing in the sauna. I got a full-on back and bicep workout that morning. Like a good hour and a half. My wife calls me. She's like, "Hey, you know, my mom's here. Your mom's here. They brought some homemade tortillas from back home. We're making some breakfast burritos. You want to come over?" I'm like, "Heck yeah!" So they pick me up. We go to the Airbnb they're at. Some good traditional Mexican salsa. My son's watching Shrek. Shrek is my favorite. He's so much in Shrek. I only get to watch half of it because I have to come back to the hotel. And so I'm feeling myself, you know what I'm saying? I'm back to me. I'm not really thinking, what am I going to miss? Oh, I'm back to just living in the moment.
Yeah.
Well, it's halftime. It's a longer halftime than usual.
Yes.
Right? Because of the show.
Yes.
What do? I finish Shrek.
In the locker?
In the locker room. I went to the trainer's room. I got on the one of the beds, the tables, and lay down and just finished Shrek. And that's when he's like, okay, I'm back.
Yeah. Wow.
Back to being myself, being goofy, just being loose.
Right.
And it was here with you guys. And then you guys know the rest of the story.
Awesome. More to come.
More to come. Yes.
More to come. You said early on, we'll end it with this, but you said early on that maybe Edmonton wanted to go younger. You know, you kicked for another like 10 years.
Yes.
Kickers can go on forever.
Yes. I mean, I want to finish my career here. I want to kick till I'm 45. I want my kid. Hopefully I have more, right? I want to have a basketball team, you know, good up tradition. You know, I wanted 10, but I started late, you know, so the basketball team will do. The soccer team can't. Too late for that right now.
Okay.
But I want my kids to watch, and remember.
Sure.
Right? So I truly believe I keep working the 6-pound brain up here, 6-pound muscle, which is the most important one. Keep training, stay healthy. To make my kicks, I feel I can kick into 10, 15 years. Why not, right?
Well, shit, kickers are going now. They're going late.
Yes. You saw Matt Bryant, 44.
Yeah.
You know,
There's a lot.
There's a lot, yeah.
They can go up there in age, probably more different than any other position.
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
You're a character, buddy.
awesome.
Everybody loves you. Thanks for doing this.
Well, thanks for having me here, and next time we'll have tacos, tequila,
Yeah,
along with good
Ed will bring it.
Perfect.
I'm not bringing the tacos. I'll bring the tequila.
There we go. Yeah. Perfect. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Sergio.
Thank you.
3, 2, 1.